Before the United States was even a country, a secret brotherhood was shaping its future. Its members were bound by oaths and ancient symbols, and at its heart stood the most powerful man in the New World, George Washington, to the public. He was the father of a nation, but in private, he was a master mason, devoted to a fraternity that saw light, geometry, and truth as the keys to human progress. The Freemasons weren't just a club, they were an idea, a system of allegory and architecture designed to build better men and, in turn, a better society. As the colonies fought for independence, many of its greatest leaders, Benjamin, Paul Revere, John Hancock, and Washington himself carried Masonic ideals into the very framework of the new republic. Over time, their quiet influence became the stuff of legend, sparking whispers of secret rituals, hidden blueprints, and coded symbols woven into the fabric of America. The roots of Freemasonry stretch back through European history, blending the traditions of medieval craft guilds with the philosophy of the Enlightenment. Its most famous symbols, the compass and square, the all-seeing eye, the unfinished pyramid, don't represent domination. They represent discipline, self-mastery, and the pursuit of truth. In the turbulent years of the American Revolution, however, secrecy was a form of power. Masonic lodges provided a safe haven where revolutionary ideals could be debated freely, away from the prying eyes of the British Crown. In this crucible of revolution, Washington's dual identity as a public leader and a private initiate shaped his entire worldview. He saw the new republic as a grand moral experiment, one that needed structure, virtue, and a clear vision. The very same principles at the core of Masonry. And so, on September 18, 1793, when he laid the cornerstone of the U.S. Capitol, he did so dressed in his full Masonic apron and regalia. It was more than just a ceremony. It was a powerful statement. The foundation of the nation's capital was also the symbolic cornerstone of a new world order, one rooted in knowledge, balance, and enlightenment. Even today, the physical layout of Washington, D.C. seems to echo these principles. The streets and monuments form geometric patterns that align with celestial markers. Some historians believe the city's design mirrors Masonic philosophy. The Capitol, the Washington Monument, and the White House form a powerful triangle representing wisdom, strength, and beauty, three core virtues of Masonry. While skeptics might dismiss the idea of a hidden blueprint, the symbolism embedded in the city's architecture is undeniable. The city itself became a kind of living lodge, where light and geometry were tools of governance. For Washington, these weren't occult secrets. They were constant reminders that the structure of power should mirror the order of the cosmos, measured, balanced, and moral. Freemasonry's influence went far beyond architecture. Its ideals shaped the very thoughts of early America. The belief in personal enlightenment, the equality of all men, and the freedom of conscience all mirrored the Masonic quest for truth. It's no coincidence that words like liberty, order, and reason dominated the language of the founding generation. Even the Great Seal of the United States, designed in part by men with Masonic connections, reflects this synthesis of ideas. The unfinished pyramid topped with the Eye of Providence, often linked to Masonic imagery, symbolized not domination, but destiny, the idea that the nation's work is never truly done, guided always by vigilance and wisdom. But as the decades passed, secrecy bred suspicion. What once represented enlightenment was slowly reinterpreted as manipulation. The Freemasons' compass and square, once emblems of moral order, became symbols of hidden control. Washington himself always maintained that Masonry was a society for moral instruction, not political power. But myths thrive in the shadows of ambiguity. After his death in 1799, stories began to circulate about Masonic rites at his funeral and secret messages encoded in his monuments. His Masonic apron, still preserved at Mount Vernon, became an object of intense fascination, a physical link between the birth of a nation and the rituals of an ancient fraternity. As the 19th century began, public opinion on secret societies soured. The rise of the anti-Masonic party in the 1820s showed a growing fear that unseen hands were pulling the strings of government. Ironically, the very ideals of freedom and transparency that Washington had championed were now being used against the organization he held dear. In response, the Freemasons retreated further into their symbolism. preserving their ancient rituals while the outside world spun tales of mysticism and conspiracy. In the modern age, the fascination with Freemasonry has only grown. Conspiracy theorists, historians, and researchers all point to Masonic symbols in our currency, our architecture, and our national ceremonies. The truth, however, is likely somewhere between wild imagination and deliberate intention. Freemasonry didn't secretly control America, but it did profoundly shape its character. Its emphasis on self-knowledge, order, and moral geometry perfectly reflected the intellectual climate of the Enlightenment, the very movement that gave birth to both the fraternity and the Republic. Washington's Masonic values of discipline, discretion, and integrity became the silent architecture of his leadership. They guided his vision for democracy, not as chaos unleashed, but as light, structured and purposeful. Today, the echoes of Masonry are still all around us. From the cornerstone-laying rituals that accompany major public buildings to the very layout of Washington, D.C., traces of Masonic thought persist not as domination, but as design. The dollar bill, with its famous eye and pyramid, continues to spark our curiosity. The Washington Monument stands like a literal pillar of light, symbolizing the Masonic aspiration for moral and spiritual elevation. And scattered across the country, thousands of lodges still gather quietly, carrying on rituals that have changed little since Washington's time. For some, these lodges are just historical relics. For others, they hold the key to a philosophy that shaped modern civilization. In reality, the secrets of Freemasonry were never truly secret. They were timeless lessons disguised as allegory, to build with balance, to seek truth and light, and to understand that power without morality will always collapse under its own weight. Our fascination with hidden meanings often says more about us than it does about the symbols themselves. The story of George Washington and the Freemasons is not about manipulation. It's about construction. The construction of ideas, of values, and of a nation built on principles far larger than any one person. The rituals, the symbols, the geometry all were attempts to make sense of the infinite by creating order, and that pursuit shaped both the physical and philosophical landscape of America. Perhaps that is the real secret, not a hidden power, but a visible and enduring legacy. Freemasonry taught that to master the self is to master the world. Washington carried that lesson from the lodge room all the way to the presidency. As night falls on the Capitol and the monuments glow beneath the stars, the geometry of the city comes alive once more. Lines converge, light reflects on stone, and the symbols remain silent, but their meaning endures: order, wisdom, and the eternal light of knowledge. And somewhere in that design, George Washington's quiet ideals still support the foundations he laid not through secret oaths, but through the powerful architecture of his vision. Welcome to Hidden U.S. This is episode 17, George Washington and the Freemasons' Secrets, the hidden blueprint of a nation. Thanks for watching. And don't forget to subscribe for more hidden history.